want to welcome you to our Leadership Speaker Series with the Bachelor of Applied Science program at Lake-Sumter State College. We're so grateful that you chose to be here with us tonight, and our program in the college are deeply appreciative of you being here. I'm Dr. Nancy Cummings. I'm the Program Director for the Bachelor of Applied Science and Leadership here at Lake-Sumter. Our BAS in Leadership educates and prepares people to successfully lead organizations and teams. Our program focuses on empowering students to reach their fullest potential as leaders. Students gain real-world experiences so they can enter either or re-enter the workforce and positively impact their communities. Many of our students choose our BAS in Leadership program to advance in their careers and take their best next step. The goal of our Leadership Speaker Series, which you're a part of tonight, is to share insights and wisdom from community leaders with our students and alumni. We're striving to showcase what it means to be a leader who's out there doing it really, really well and doing it every single day. Through stories and shared experiences, our panelists and our students gain real-life perspectives that they can immediately apply in their educational and their professional journeys. Here's how tonight's going to unfold. I'm going to introduce our moderator and our panelists, and then Naomi, our moderator, will take it from there and moderate a portion of the Q&A, and then towards the end, we'll leave it open for you all if you have questions to ask towards the end. And before I introduce our panelists, please allow me this moment. I am thrilled to welcome and introduce our newly appointed president, John Temple. He'll provide our closing remarks at the end. Tonight's topic is legal boundaries, ethical dilemmas, perspectives from the field. Our moderator and our panelists are all servant leaders within their communities. Our speaker series moderator is Naomi Gonzalez Freitas. Naomi has called Lake County, Florida home since 2016. Naomi has a BA in Audiovisual Communications from the University of Puerto Rico and has been working in video production, television, and marketing for more than 10 years. She currently serves as the director of our award-winning production studio here at Lake-Sumter State College. Most of the time, Naomi's on the other side of the room. Tonight, she's in the front of the room acting as our moderator, so thank you so much, Naomi. Naomi also serves the community alongside her husband as the worship and media pastors of Senda Church, a multicultural and bilingual church in Tavares. Thank you. Chief Charles Chuck Broadway is a 29-year law enforcement veteran who was recently appointed as the 35th Chief of Police for the Kissimmee Police Department. Prior to this role, he served as the Chief of Police for the Claremont Police Department from 2012 to 2025. Chief Broadway is the first African-American Chief of Police for both the Claremont and Kissimmee Police Departments. Chief began his career in 1996 with the New York City Police Department. Subsequent to the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001, he responded to Ground Zero and assisted with the search and recovery efforts. Shortly afterwards, he relocated to Florida to be closer to his family and worked for the Gainesville Police Department as a detective. As I read more, hold on, his accolades are quite impressive. And we all know that. Chief continued to advance in his career, being hired by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement as a special agent where he investigated multi-jurisdictional violent crimes and conducted complex narcotic, human trafficking, and gang investigations. Chief Broadway was then promoted to a special agent supervisor, overseeing several investigative functions and state initiatives. He later was chosen to oversee the highly regarded Public Integrity Unit at the agency, which encompassed investigations of alleged misconduct of public officials and all public officer-involved shootings in the Central Florida region. Along with numerous prestigious appointments, Chief Broadway was recently appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis to the newly formed Immigration Enforcement Council and to the Juvenile Justice Information Systems Council, where he currently serves as the council chair. Chief has been married to his wife, Dana, for 31 years. Broadway and Dana are proud parents of 4 daughters and are also grandparents. Sarah Lux has practiced public relations for over 12 years, specifically focusing on community education, outreach, government affairs, reputation management, and crisis communications. She is part of the Florida Association of Public Information Officers State Deployment Team and the Public Information Officer for Florida's Region 5 All Hazards Incident Management Team. She is certified by the state of Florida as a Type 3 All Hazards Public Information Officer, one of only 5 in the state of Florida. Sarah is the former lead public information officer for Lake County. She has been deployed by local, state, and federal agencies 10 times to aid communications post-disaster, including deployment to Fort Myers Beach and Pine Island after Hurricane Ian. Sarah prides herself on her ability to foster trust with citizens in her community by clearly and transparently explaining complex governmental matters. Meredith Nagel has practiced law since 1997, finding fulfillment and guiding clients through life's legal challenges with care, compassion, and respect. Inspired by her uncle, the late Senator Richard Langley, Meredith pursued law to make a meaningful impact. Early in her career, she worked under Florida Supreme Court Justice Barbara Pariente, who shaped her understanding that the law is not just about rules, but actually about people's lives. After gaining experience at the international firm Holland & Knight, Meredith returned to her roots in Claremont, founding her firm in 2005. Her firm's mission is to change the world one client at a time. Today, she leads a dedicated team focused on real estate, estate planning, probate, guardianship, family law, and business law. A devoted mother of 3 and an active community member, Meredith continues to serve with heart, striving to uplift others both inside and outside the courtroom. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Naomi.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cummings, for all those introductions, and I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. So let's get started. We were given an interesting topic this time around, and we have great guests. So from your experience, where do legal boundaries most often clash with ethical considerations? And I think Chief already
I'll start on that one. So coming from my perspective and my vantage point, I want to talk about a topic that has a nationwide impact. It has divided this nation racially, demographically, as well as politically. And it is a deadly force used by police officers. Officers are given by law the right to utilize force, what's legal, necessary, and reasonable. When an officer utilizes excessive force, he or she needs to be held accountable. The ethical dilemma there is releasing of information after an officer is involved in a deadly shooting. And what I mean by that is when an officer utilizes or discharges his or her firearm, that's a criminal investigation. Legally, I don't have to release video, body cam. I only have to release certain information by law. Ethical dilemma. But should I release more information in the spirit of transparency, in the spirit of accountability, in the spirit of building and retaining trust within a community? There are this very divided amongst law enforcement agencies. Some will not release anything until that criminal investigation is done. I take the position of to be transparent, and regardless if that shooting was to 100% justifiable or if it was questionable, I'm going to take the stance of being transparent and releasing what I can to ensure the community has the facts of what occurred, what happened, and all the information, so that way the facts are getting out, so that there's not a narrative or information out there floating, but the facts are being presented and out ASAP and expeditiously.
Sarah, I would like you to pick up on that.
Yeah, so as PIOs, one of the things that I think emblematic of how we can work in a government is we often hear, oh, county attorney doesn't like you, oh, city attorney doesn't like you, because we want to be transparent. And I do believe there is something in the middle there. There's something that you can find that you can release to make sure you save public trust. There is nothing worse, and I've seen it, right, than a police officer making an arrest, using force, etc., and you see that body camera go off right before it happens. And the fact that we have a local chief who understands that transparency is huge. There is a middle. You don't want to put out information or video that's going to hurt somebody or dox someone or in some way negate or put a negative effect on their life. But you do want to make sure people know that you did the right thing if you did, and that you didn't do the right thing if you didn't, and what you're going to do about that. We see it all the time where, we'll get called out to various different scenes that involve law enforcement. And one of the things I'm thinking about is hoarders, right? My team will respond to a hoarding case. By law, there's a citation. We may have to condemn the house. We have to have them leave. There are legal requirements if that house is underneath certain conditions. The leadership and ethical side of it comes, but how can we enhance that experience for the person who's about to go through probably one of the worst days of their lives? Right? And the way that we do that is we use that leadership to think a little bit outside of the box. So in one case that I dealt with in the past, they had to condemn the house. The house was not livable. It was unsafe, right? There was no way around it. But, hey, do you have a family member that I can get on the phone so that they can be on speaker and hear what I'm saying? Because maybe, there's a mental illness there. There's a gap of knowledge there. So, hey, can we get a family member on the phone so they can be in this conversation with us, they can support you? Do you want to wait until your family member can get home so you can take some of the most important things out of the house before we condemn it? Right? Let's look at some of those leadership opportunities to be able to enhance, again, what is probably the worst day of their life. And I think we can do that, even in cases of officer-involved shootings. I think we can think about how can we take the extra step. One last example, and then I would love to hear what you think as well. There's an example that I give in my crisis training, where it's a police officer giving a press conference about the show Cops and in law enforcement involved shootings, so it's very confusing. They say cops a lot. It's very confusing. But a police officer was shot, a member of the Cops production crew was shot, and the person who was committing the crime was also shot. There were 3 fatalities. And what I loved so much about it, and I can picture Chief doing the same thing, is at the press conference they said, our condolences go to the family of the Cops production crew, our condolences go to the family of our brother who's fallen, and our condolences go to the family of the person who was committing the crime as well. And I think that's incredible, right? It's both sides. So, and I'll turn it over to you because I'm sure you have some thoughts too.
Can I just add one thing? You mentioned the potentially being doxxed. So that's a balance also where a chief or a head of a law enforcement agency has to show, a consideration to their officer as well. Know that the potential of, even if it was a 100% justifiable shooting, but also being considerate of their concerns, because they do go through trauma. Don't believe just because an officer utilizes force and it's 100% justifiable that he or she does not experience trauma after that incident, because they do. So we got to have that balance of being transparent and letting out a lot of information to the community, but also being considerate of our men and women serving and protecting the community.
So I don't practice criminal law and try to stay out of officer-involved shootings. So I unfortunately don't have anything that exciting to talk about, but coming off of your hoarders comment, our firm does quite a bit of guardianship work. You guys might understand generally it's taking care of folks who maybe don't have the competency anymore. The most famous one everybody's heard of is Britney Spears, right? As an example. She was in a guardianship, the California version. So many times as the lawyer, you have to make a legal call that sometimes pushes your ethical boundaries, and here's what I mean by that. It's a great honor to be a lawyer, and I had asked some of you if you were considering the law, and everyone said no, Chief. Can you believe it? If you're thinking about being a lawyer, come see me after. I think it's a great thing. But anyway, back to my point. I have a legal obligation as someone's advocate to make sure that their needs and desires are being followed through on. I also have my humanity. right? My personhood, my morals, which are larger than my ethics. And sometimes where they can bump into it for me, as an example, if Paula was a client of mine and she was losing it, and I have to make a hard call, have to call her kids and say, sometimes the call is to someone like Chief, I'm worried about my client at so-and-so. That's a call I have to make because as a human being, I have to look after them and make sure they're okay. As a lawyer, it's a harder question. Do you see that? Because she's coming to me for help. Little does she know that I'm actually going to have to put her in a guardianship because she needs more help than she understands. It's hard. And the other thing I wanted to say, to add to what you guys are saying, is never forget that people, you guys are all going to be in leadership. People are watching you all the time. Your employees or the people that are lucky enough, that you're lucky enough to have in your life, they are watching every single decision that you make as a leader, and it's filtering through. So Chuck says, I believe in transparency. Him making that decision filters through to all of the people under his command because they see him not making that decision not only in the officer-involved shooting, but what he believes about what a leader should be, transparent, forthcoming, right? So never forget you're being watched all the time.
So you all talked about transparency. To what extent should professionals rely on personal values versus institutional or legal codes when facing ethical dilemmas?
I'll take that first since it talks about the law. So when I was a young lawyer, I was a zealous advocate for everybody, right? That was my job. I was a zealous advocate. And then I got old. And, getting old changes you in a really good way. Chuck will know because he's old like me, only he looks younger. But what it does is it empowers you to make choices that really you should make when you're young. And that is never, ever sacrifice your personal code for any reason. For any reason. For any reason. There is no reason. There is no case. There is no person. There is no amount of money. There is nothing that I would ever compromise on. So anyway, I just wanted to pitch that as you get older, you realize your own personal values, to me, that's what makes me a good lawyer. My personal values. That's what makes Chief a good chief. Her personal experiences in her own life as Maylor, this amazing PI. So be your own values. Be yourself. Do it the way you think it should be done. Never compromise.
Yeah, I completely agree. Touching on you saying that everybody's always watching, there is a junior staff member, there is somebody in your life who's younger who is always watching you. And I think the biggest compliment I could ever get as a leader is one of my, I call them baby PIOs, right? One of my little PIOs. 10 years later ago, I learned that from Sarah. Right? To me, that is a huge compliment because you've attained it all these years. And one of the things that I have tried very hard to pass down to them is you have to be the voice in the room. You have to be the one to say no, because often, especially in times of crisis, you don't understand the emotional turmoil that person is going through to make the bad decision they're about to make. Right? They're not thinking clearly. They're not using rational sense. I'll give you a good example. In one of my deployments, we badly needed to get food and water to people. We needed to so bad. And I won't say where this is, but the sheriff of that town decided he was going to just start putting resources out on somebody's property. He didn't care if he had permission. He didn't care if they didn't want it there. He needed to put water and resources there, and he was going to do it. And he used emergency powers to say that he had the right to do so. And I walked over to him and I said, hey, really bad idea. Let's talk about why. And I walked him through and I told him, I was like, you're wrong, but it's okay to be wrong. Let's go talk to the owner of that property. Let's do this the right way. Let's reach out to a couple churches. Let's see if we can do something else. But coming in and taking somebody's land and over-exemplifying a code that nobody knows is probably not in your best interest in the long term. Is it going to get water and food to people? Yes, and that's great. Is it in the long term going to cause a lawsuit that now you have to go and be a part of because you took somebody's land when you weren't allowed to, right? And so I do believe you, as a leader, you have to walk in. Now, is it going to make you popular? No. You are not going to be the most popular person in the room. Is it going to make you universally beloved? No. It won't, right? But it will mean that at the end of the day, you went home and you gave 100%. And I think at the end of the day, giving 100% is all you can be asked to do, right?
I think you guys said it all, but again, I agree. Stay true to yourself, stay true to your values, your morals, your ethics, your beliefs, your standards. And I think what helps that in a career or a business or amongst other employees or coworkers is communication. And I don't mean texting, emailing, I mean direct communication. The more I can communicate with Ms. Meredith, I understand her values, she understands my values, we understand each other's convictions and absolutes and our guardrails. So that way we have that open dialogue and that open communication. We understand so we can support each other when it comes to our various different convictions and our values and morals and ethics. And then I would never put her in it, understanding that, and if she's an employee of mine, understanding that, and then my supervisor should never put me in a position to compromise my morals and my ethics and my convictions, because we have that understanding, we have that communication already, so we understand one another.
I think, I just want to follow up with this to staying true to your values. So you guys know there are people that represent murderers, knowing that they're murderers, right? That's not my ethic. That's not my moral. But thank goodness that is their ethic and their moral, right? Because they understand they're serving the system. They're following their ethic, they're following their moral. If Chief was the supervisor of me and this other guy, he's not going to put me on the murder case because that's not my ethics and my morals, right? So I think it's important to understand that sometimes these concepts are a little fluid. I mean, surely there's absolutes. Right, but sometimes they're fluid, and understanding your team and the makeup of your team is so huge that you don't accidentally put someone in a position where they could compromise themselves. It never works.
I'm just curious, can you name any examples maybe that you personally experienced facing an ethical dilemma in the workplace?
I can tell you, as a rookie police officer in the 90s, I remember we made an arrest. The subject was in handcuffs, and the other officer, I guess, didn't stop utilizing force, which when he was in handcuffs. And I remember grabbing that other officer and said, he's got enough. My Zach Royce, he's got enough. And end up transporting him to jail. So yes, those ethical dilemmas, those situations will come if you're just getting into the business world or to an organization or to a career. You will be faced with those decisions. But I've learned also to always make the hard right decisions and not the easy wrong ones. Oftentimes we make those easy wrong decisions because we want to be popular, we want to be liked, we want to take the path of least resistance. But I stand by always making the hard right decisions.
So as a lawyer, I have an ethical dilemma every day, right? There are people that ask me to do things that are illegal. And so I decided very early, a good old-fashioned parable from this really famous guy that you might have heard of called Jesus, right? The good old do unto others as you would have them do unto you. As you're making your ethical decisions using that framework, it falls into place. But I have found, just like Chuck has, sometimes the right decision is the hardest decision. And sometimes that's how I know it's the right decision, because it was the hard call. It was the hard call to stand up and make a political post that's going to cost me business. It was the hard call to follow my heart. And frequently, that's how I know it's the right one.
You know, it's funny, I think the thing that the three of us have in common on the stage is that we all probably say, please don't commit a felony more often than we should. Just, please don't do that. Please, it's against the law. Please don't do that. You know, ethical dilemmas come up as PIOs all the time, and more often than not, I'm sitting in a group of leaders. There's typically a group around me, and I have to be the one to say, no. But I do think that in those cases, it's very easy to back down. It is very easy. This is an ethical dilemma. It's not a legal dilemma technically, but on one of my deployments when I showed up, this was an out-of-state deployment. I was there day one day. And they came up to me and they said, we want to do a press conference. I said, great, that's my job. I'm good at press conferences, got you. And they were like, but we're going to write the script. You get the media set up. Now, you guys, right? 2020, not at the time. Hold on. I fought it, but I didn't have any public trust. They had just met me. I'm from out of state. I'm not even from around there, right? They didn't trust me. They weren't going to listen to me. And so I thought in that moment, my ethics were that it's better to get out any information than to say no and get out no information. And so I said, okay, if you really don't want me to look at it, okay, I'll get the press. Well, they got up there, and I'm going to fudge these numbers a little bit to make it less identifiable, but they said, we are going to confirm that there's 18 people deceased, and there's 514 missing, and we're calling off USAR, goodbye. And they left. And I said, oh, I made the wrong decision, right? So when I came in the next day, I was determined to be transparent, to make it clear that we had made the wrong decision, to be loud about that and upfront with it. And the first thing I had to do was take the mayor out as the spokesperson because he had just lied. He had just lost trust. They were not going to believe him if he came back and said, oh, sorry, we heard you, we'll bring back USAR. They're not going to believe him. It had to be a new spokesperson. And going in and saying, you lied, A, I'm mad at you. B, I'm changing you out for the police chief or the fire chief because that they have public trust and you have zero because you broke at what people would all agree are ethics. That's a hard conversation. But you have to have it. Otherwise, you're just spinning your wheels, not making any progress because they don't believe that person anyways, right? And so I do believe it's easier not to go in and have that conversation. And by the way, he had lost his house. He had lost his dog. His other house somehow caught fire during the storm, which I think is crazy. He was going through it too. He wasn't thinking in his rational mind. So it's your job to put those ethic barriers in place. And you're not just protecting the truth, but you're protecting him too down the line, right?
Just something you said about that tough conversation, a transparent conversation, and I see this a lot in the newer or younger generations. You know, I'm old, like Meredith said, but we shy away from those tough conversations, and we have to sit down face to face and have those tough conversations and reference it. This was wrong, and this is how we can fix it. This is how we can go forward. This is how we can move forward. I'm going to help you get there, but we have to acknowledge what you did was unethical, immoral, wrong, mistake, whatever that was. But we got to sit down and have that tough conversation. Again, I feel like a lot of us avoid that conversation. That conversation is critical and important to moving your organization forward.
So all of you have given examples of different people pushing you to operate in ethically gray areas in the past. I guess my follow-up question would be, what's the best way to handle those situations? Because you talk a lot about having that conversation. Are you having off-the-record conversations, or is there documentation involved, and how much?
Documentation. Lawyers love it and lawyers hate it, depending on what side of the documents you're on. Right? So I basically tell my clients, don't put anything in writing unless you have to. But, you know, to your point, I think that there are some things that it is important to document. Again, with this idea of setting the guidance for your organization. And I think that when you're making those calls, that kind of needs to be the lens that you're looking through. You know, you don't want to, you can't hurt the person that's the subject of the communication. Sometimes it needs to be in writing, sometimes it needs to be orally. I think the coming back to your guiding principle, do unto others, what's the right thing to do? If you keep coming back to that point, you won't get the easy answer, but you get the right answer, right? So I think it's really just a case by case.
In government, gray area is really tough because there's a lot of it, and most people don't know what it is. And so those please don't commit a felony comments, those are mostly due to gray area, right? I find that talking in person, A, is more helpful for those reasons. Things don't get convoluted, things don't get lost, something doesn't get wrong. But also, in those gray areas, I'm trying to decide intent. Is there a good faith privilege that comes from doing this? Or am I just going to have to spin it a whole bunch to make it look good faith? right? An example that's really famous in the PIO world is elections. I'm not allowed to work on the election of any of the electeds that I serve. I am not allowed. It is a crime, right? I am not allowed to do that. And so I have to be very careful. Are you wanting me to do this Facebook video because you're campaigning? Or do you want to do it because it's the best thing for our community at that time? Now throw in there's a disaster or a crisis, and that mayor wants to be on camera to speak to his community, but it's also campaign season. Which one are we going to go with? It's very difficult, right? And so I think in that moment, I need to see you in person, and I need to be able to see, are you doing this with good intent, or are you doing this because you think it'll help you get around the system? Now, and this is going to make some people in the room laugh, I am not a rule breaker. I love following rules. I love it. I love following rules. Oh my gosh, I am such a rule follower. Unless you don't tell me what the rules are, and then I'm going to make them up. So be very clear from the beginning, right? So sometimes I get myself into gray areas because I accidentally make up rules, right? But for the most part, I like erring on the side of rules. And I'm going to say that louder because there's a police chief right next to me. But I really like erring on the side of rules, right? But that gray area, it has to be with good intent. There has to be a benefit. There has to be a privilege to your community. And if there's not, then you can pay me on my off time, my contracting rate to help your campaign, right?
Just to add one thing, I think documentation is very, very important, especially when it's time to hold an employee accountable for past history and practices. Documentation is key and is critical at that point in time. Also for if they sue, you have documentation. But also I believe in documenting and commending those who do good even more. I believe in filling somebody's file, their employment packet or their HR packet with all the good that they do. And I encourage my supervisors, if somebody gets caught doing something good, we document that just as quick as we're going to document someone who commits an infraction.
So the next question, I'd like Chief to start off. Only because you recently changed from being the chief of police over at Claremont, and now you're in Kissimmee. So how do organizational culture and leadership impact the way ethical dilemmas are perceived and addressed? And I'd like to see if there's been a difference in culture from Claremont to Kissimmee.
Sure. Wow, good question.
As your attorney chief, I imagine.
As your PIO, I also suggest you
remain silent, Chief.
I'm a believer in everything rises and falls on leadership. It starts there, it ends there, it meets there. Everything is all about leadership. And it's incumbent upon that leader to create that culture, but not only to create that culture, but retain and maintain that culture. I just believe in instituting a lot of leadership qualities, leadership characteristics up and down throughout the agency, making our employees feel valued, making them feel part of the process, valuing their input, their feedback, and how we can improve, how we can move forward, how can we get past some negativity or some public scrutiny. Well, what can I do to help us get to that point, and then also getting their feedback. And I think once they get that buy-in and you build that trust with your employees, there's no stopping that agency, and the agencies continue to move forward. But I think you got to get that buy-in and value their input and value their feedback.
Great. So I guess I'm looking for, have you had to change anything that, the way you approach a situation just because of a different culture?
Sure. So there is definitely some implementations that I had to make as a leader within the agency. One thing that I did when I first got to Kissimmee was an open door in reference to having 30-minute meetings with every single employee with the agency. And there literally was a line out my door. My calendar is still filled with just 30-minute meetings. Again, valuing their input and valuing their feedback, listening to the employees of, hey, how can I help us get to that next level? How can I help move forward? So I think that was implemented in reference to just having that open door conversation with our employees, and again, hearing from them how we can improve as an agency and how we can improve our relationships with our community as well.
Awesome.
So for me, I'll jump in just real quick, because she's got a lot more to offer on this. So for me, leadership, it shows up in different ways depending on your context. Many of you are in the room and you're going to maybe lead a business and you're going to be shocked and surprised you're also a leader of the PTA. Oh, and by the way, you lead the Thanksgiving drive at your church. Oh, and by the way, right? And each of those spots where you have an opportunity to be a leader, what you really have an opportunity to do is serve. And you hear that old-fashioned servant leader, servant leader, servant leader. That's where the cultural change comes in, because if you're a good leader, you pay attention to the room, right? So your PTA group might be very different than the city council, right? But yet you bring the same ethics, you bring yourself, you bring your same personhood, but you listen to the people around you. And if that's the attitude you bring into the new culture, then you're going to rise to be a leader there just like you were before. So think about that when you're thinking about your leadership in your degree. It's not just work. In fact, I would argue that work is maybe the least important place that you have an opportunity to be a leader, especially in this world. So,
my goal at the end of my career, whenever that may be, hopefully tomorrow, but whenever, right? My goal is that nobody ever says they were too scared to tell me something, right? And and I'm not saying anybody in here is, but whoever's watching, if you are proud that people toe the line around you, you are not serving yourself, right? I truly believe that to be a good leader, you have to be approachable. And if you follow my Facebook, you'll know I make a lot of jokes. It's like, oh, this is what it's like to work with me, and I'm making a dumb face. And that's because a lot of people only ever see me in life or death situations when I'm very serious. And I want people who follow me or who check in on me to see that bubbly, laughy, jokey kind of Sarah, right? Because they may not have been able to see that before. And I want them to feel comfortable. I just made one saying I was buying a Powerpuff Girl backpack for my new go bag. And I'm like super excited about it, right? So if anybody feels intimidated to come talk to me, I've got a Powerpuff Girl go bag. Don't, right? I will say this too. There are leaders who it's not in them and it's not intentional for them to be one of those scary leaders. It just is their fight instinct. And one of the things that I've found is the most beneficial for a wide variety of reasons is when something bad happens, I give them mental space to process what is happening. So, for instance, going to deployment, we found out that the county had called down their special needs list 3 days before the hurricane. That's great. I didn't even know they had a special needs list. Go them. Well, they come up to us and they say, oh, it's been 8 days and we never called them back. And I went, oh. What were the notes like when you made calls? Oh, they were out of oxygen, they didn't have food, they didn't have water 8 days ago. And I said, we're going to have to go check on these people door to door because there's no electricity, there's no phone lines, there's nothing. We're going to go door to door. Me and my fire chief are going to go. And I looked at my incident commander, he's a young guy. I think he was 28 at the time. I looked at him and I said, hey, we are going to be gone for an hour. I want for that entire hour you to go and take a walk. I want you to call your wife. I want you to think about the situation. I want you to process the situation, because if we find bodies, not only is there a legal obligation for us to do something, but we are the outsiders. We're an AHIMT. We're an all hazard incident management team. We are not part of them. You're going to have to give a press conference where that will be blamed on you because you are the other. And as the incident commander, you are going to be up on the podium. And I want you to take 45 minutes, an hour, however long we're gone. Talk to your wife, talk to your kids, think it through. Because when you get up there, you can't be the scary guy. You can't. You have to be the empathetic guy, and it's going to take you a little bit of time to get there, right? So give your leaders, I know they're leaders, and I know you think like, oh, they've got this on lock, but they don't. They're people. And if they panic, they may get scared, and if they're scared, they may make you scared. And now I've got a whole different problem. Give them some time to process it before you put them on a stage.
Great. So what advice would you give to emerging professionals entering the field who may encounter legal, ethical tensions for the very first time?
Buckle up. I think we all probably have very similar advice, and that's you're going to figure it out. You're going to figure it out. When I do various different interviews, what I always say is every job is trial by combat. It doesn't matter that it was trial by combat. It matters who you brought in the ring with you, right? If you bring the right person into your ring, then you can combat all day long. But if those people have maces and you've got a stick and you didn't bring a single person with you, you're about to have a bad time, right? So yes, it's trial by combat. Yeah, you're going to hate it for a while. Everybody has a bad day. You slowly have worse days, right, over time. But have a good community, ask questions, bring people into the ring with you, and it'll be easier.
Stay true to yourself, as we mentioned before. Never compromise your convictions, your values. And leadership is all about people. It's about people and influence. It's who can I inspire today? Who can I encourage? Who can I help today? Who can I support? Sometimes who can I forgive today? But leadership is always, always, always about people. We can manage things all day. We can learn about policy, procedures, the law, Florida statute. But when it comes to leadership, it's all about the people you engage with and the community that you engage with.
Yeah, I wish that the answer was more simple or more complicated than it comes down to heart, right? Find out who you are. Some of us are old and we don't know, right? Find out who you are and be you, unashamedly you. And I'm going to speak now to the women in the room. And I am unashamedly pro-woman because we've had a hard time. I'm going to tell you, ladies, we have been told our whole life that we're either too much or that we're not enough. Be the leader that sets the pattern for the people that are watching you and show that being you is all you need to be. You're never too much. You're always enough. Be you. And you've heard from two smart people and a kind of smart person, and you're hearing the same thing, which is transparency, honesty, be true to yourself. This is not a coincidence that we didn't talk about this ahead of time. But to my women in the room, I'm going to tell you, people are not going to like you because you're a woman. Sorry, I know it's not okay to talk about DEI right now, but the reason we had DEI is because women are discriminated against in the workplace. Can I get an amen? Amen. Be prepared for it. Know it when you see it. See it with love. Know it's people that just need to be educated, that's all. And and the last thing I'll say is pray that they underestimate you as a woman. Right? Show up, be yourself, be true. You're always enough and you're never too much.
There's a professional coach that I chose to go to. I was struggling in my career a couple years ago. I didn't really know where I wanted to go. I didn't really know what I wanted to be or, what my direction was. I felt listless. And so I went to a coach who specializes in female millennial leaders, which who knew that existed?
Good luck to her.
Oh, God, I know. She's got a way harder job than I do. But she, brought up this thing that I didn't even recognize I was doing. And I said, I'm sorry before everything.
Yeah. If I had $1 for every time a woman who said, I'm about to preach.
Yes, stop.
Women are like,
yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm like, stop apologizing.
I'm so sorry. Can I have a minute of your time? No, go. Can I have a minute of your time? That one thing made me too much and made me a better leader all at the same time. Be too much if you're a good leader. I would way rather you be too much and me have to take you off the side and be like, hey, it's okay, you're making that guy cry, you can stop now. I would rather do that than have to go, man, stop saying you're sorry every 30 seconds, right? Be too much if it means you're going to be a good leader.
Awesome. I love that. So looking ahead, what emerging ethical dilemmas do you foresee becoming central in your field over the next 5 to 10 years?
So I've got the easiest answer, and that's AI. AI for me is the largest ethical dilemma. The computers are trying to practice law, and they're not doing a very good job. And the average person doesn't know that. They think that what they see on the Google answer when they type in something is right. It's frequently wrong. For us, ethically, as lawyers going forward, it's going to be how do we use AI well? How do we train it well? How do we find the place? Because again, ethics and integrity and leadership cannot be done by a computer. At the end of the day, it comes down to the person. So for us, it's AI. I'm excited to hear what you guys think.
AI for us as well, with technology, Big Brother, facial recognition. There's a lot of things out there that could be used to, prevent crime, reduce crime, but also it could be used to profile or subject to the scrutiny of the law as well. Another thing that's emerging for law enforcement is recreational marijuana. I mean, where is that going to be, or how is that going to impact us the next several years as well?
I think in the PIO world, what PIOs truly bring to the table is empathy, right? In a world of government communications, we have to bring the empathy to explain over and over again. We have to bring the empathy to understand what your question actually is. We need to bring the empathy just to stand next to you. And right now, with how politically divided everything is, and it's getting more politically divided by the day, it's very difficult to tread the line of, I have to follow the law. I'm always going to follow the law. But how can I add a touch of empathy into that and not go too far one way? And it's my responsibility to do both. My responsibility is always going to be to do what the law instructs me to do. I'm a government servant, right? But I do have to find those little opportunities for empathy where we can do them. I just made a blog post today. Is anybody aware of Vera Smith from Hurricane Katrina? So Vera Smith was a woman whose body, she died during Hurricane Katrina, and she was left on the street for 4 days. Once she was eventually buried, she was buried by the community, and they buried her in a hole with a tarp over it that said, Vera Smith, God help us. And do I understand why, for a whole variety of reasons, the government shouldn't have moved that body without it being examined? 1,000 different things, right? They were focusing on everything, but, failing to meet all of it because it was too much. They were prioritizing what they thought was the most important. But do I think a PIO standing there while they buried the body, digging a little bit of that hole, hugging the people around them, would have made that situation better? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And so the ethical dilemma is, I'm one PIO. Do I focus all of my time on public safety messaging, where to get food, where to get water, where to, X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah? Or do I take the time to stand next to them with a shovel? And I do think you have to do both.
I want to thank you all for this awesome discussion. I think we all got a lot of great information today, a lot of different perspectives. I hope to have you back in the future. So I'm going to pass it over to our new president, John Temple here. He's going to give us some closing remarks.
Let's give them another round of applause. Wasn't that amazing? So I've had the joy of being at every one of these so far, and every time I take something away. And normally, I try to write down 3 or 4 things. This time I have 8, so I'm going to try to go through them really quickly. But I was trying to narrow them down and knocked a few out, but I couldn't get past 8. So when dealing with ethical dilemmas, each situation is different, but your morals are not. So transparency and the human aspect of dealing with these situations is real, and you always need to remember that. 2, as leaders, people are always watching. What you do is what your people will do and follow. Leadership and opportunity, or leadership and popularity, do not go hand in hand. What does go hand in hand are the hard calls. Number 4, embrace the tough conversations. Once you embrace them, they become easier. They're not easy, but easier. So embrace the tough conversations. Some of us love the rules and don't like to break them. Some of us love the rules to know how to use them. I fall in the latter. Everything rises and falls on leadership. Great leaders know how to deal with up-and-coming leaders that can be too much. I look for those type of people to be around. I look to help them find their way and navigate their way. So embrace the tough, outspoken, bold people around you, because they are the ones that are going to move and shake, and you want to help mold them as leaders. Number 7, leadership shows up in many different ways in many different environments. So how you lead at work may be different than how you lead in your church or how you lead in your community. But again, back to the very first thing, your morals and your values never change. And I think the most important thing that I got today, as a reminder, and I know this, leaders are human also. So as we elevate our leaders and we put them on pedestals in some cases, or we look up to them, they have families, they have challenges, they have trauma that they all go through as well. So remember that as we look to our leaders, and as you become a leader, you're human. You're not perfect. There was only one person in this world that ever was, and remember that. And the last thing, my 2 cents, just a reminder to stay true to your values. Remember the people, and find out who you are. That was something that was said as well. Find out who you are so you understand the type of leader you will be. Because if you don't know who you are, you're not going to be able to lead. Thank y'all so much for being here. Thank you for choosing this leadership program. And I hope you got as much out of it as I did. There's so many nuggets, so much more that we could sit there and talk about. But thank you for being here. Thank you for the panels. Thank you for everybody that helped put this together. Dr. Cummings for being the lead and coordinating all this for us. What a wonderful evening. Thank you. God bless, and have a wonderful evening.